I am yours, I am yours, I am yours, send me, Lord.
Welcome to the Gospel Center Pro-Life Podcast. There's a lot of expectations of what it's like to be on the sidewalk in front of an abortion center. In this episode, we talk with our intern, Autumn, about what it felt like for her, and we thought her perspective would be a blessing to you. Stay tuned.
I felt your passion, I've touched your heart. Use me, Lord, use me, Lord.
Welcome to the Gospel Center Pro-Life Podcast. We're glad to be able to be with you and just share from our hearts some of the things that the Lord has put on our hearts. And today, we really want to have a podcast that will help some of you folks who are hearing about what we're doing with Cities for Life and what other people are doing at abortion clinics. Although this podcast is not just about sidewalk counseling, it's a lot of what we focus on and the perspective we're coming from. And some of you guys are maybe interested in getting involved. Maybe you have been involved. But there can be some barriers. You know, we hear from a lot of folks that want to be involved on the sidewalk, and there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of scariness of doing something new and something outside of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So we thought that we would bring a guest on who has had that experience in the past couple of weeks, who is our intern with Cities for Life. Yep. She's done a great job. Autumn Lowery, who's been with us. You've been ministering with us for a couple of weeks now. How long?
This is my fourth week.
Fourth week ministering with us. Now, you had been out on the sidewalk before when you were younger with a church group that came out. And so you kind of had an idea of what goes on out there, but you really never experienced it from that perspective until just about 4 weeks ago.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to have Autumn on, guys, so that we could kind of, get some of the questions that you guys have answered, some of the anxiety that you feel. Maybe we can help calm some of that and encourage you to be out there on the sidewalk, just to take a step of faith, to do the hard ministry of being on the sidewalk. It's misunderstood. Even in Christian circles, people don't understand why you're out there. So that's one of the fears. Mm-hmm. But just in your mind, maybe you misunderstand what sidewalk counseling is and what it feels like to be out there. So we're going to just talk with Autumn a little bit, and hopefully this conversation will be a conversation with you as well as you're listening. Yeah. And calm some of the fears that you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll ask you, Autumn, as you came, because you reached out to me on email and asked about interning with us. You're at North Greenville University there, and you needed an internship. That's part of your school in there. And so you reached out to me about coming out, and I said, fresh meat. It's going to be fun.
Oh, we were so excited.
She didn't know what she's getting into. Yeah. What were your thoughts? Like, kind of, and I know I asked you this when we interviewed you for the internship, like, what do you think we do? But before you came out on the sidewalk, what were your thoughts of what sidewalk counseling is, what Cities for Life does? What was going through your mind?
Well, I think I maybe had a little bit of a different perspective just because I have been coming out with my church since like the 6th grade, but I had never talked on Latrobe Drive until I started working for you guys. We'd always come out just to pray. So I actually didn't know I was going to be as involved on the sidewalks as I am. Just being an intern, I thought I was going to do a lot more maybe behind the scenes stuff. Yeah. So when you guys told me that I was going to be more on the sidewalk, I went home and told Ashley, I was like, I'm going to cry. Like, I was like, that's so intimidating. Again, I've never said a word on this street before now. Like, and I didn't know that you guys called out as much as you did. I guess because when I had come out with my youth group, it was just one person like on a mic talking, and so I thought that's majority. I didn't know. I thought like maybe the sidewalk counselors just sat there and waited until someone came out. I
and
didn't
people
know.
Just flocked to them and begged them.
I guess that's what I thought. Living in America, everyone just wanted to do that. But like, and
well,
then
plus you knew we were such wonderful people, and you're
exactly.
wondering like, why
I
wouldn't
was
people
like,
be flocking
you see
to
their
them?
faces, you'd want to cling to that. So. And then on Saturdays, I've never been out during the week, and on Saturdays, there's so much going on. It's so hectic. It's hard to see everything that is going on. And then with the pro aborts being out there, I feel like that's where a lot of my attention would always go. Because it's just, you don't see that like at Target, know?
Right,
so I definitely didn't know that I would be talking as much as I have been. And that has been very challenging and very scary. So, but
in fact, terrifying, I guess, from the at the get-go, terrifying. We had no clue, right? We're sorry.
You did a good
We're
job of
very
covering that
sorry.
up.
No, it's
No, it's great. Listen,
Yeah.
you need that. You
Yeah.
need to be put out. And we really did just sort of put her out there
We
on
did.
the sidewalk. And, hey,
Well,
you want to
because-
intern with us? We have a job for you.
Yeah.
Here, we'll
But in our defense, when you were initially talking to us, coronavirus had not yet quite appeared, or if it
Right,
had,
yeah.
Yeah.
it hadn't at least crossed over to our country. And all of a sudden, here we are with all these new restrictions. We have no idea how we're going to navigate that. But we didn't want to lose our intern.
Yeah.
well, even when I came to interview with you guys, I didn't even know if I was going to be able to start right away because at that point my school was still like, we might still go back.
Right.
So it was
Yeah.
way before anything major had
Right.
happened. So
Yeah.
I really had no idea
Yeah.
what it was going to look like.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. So the calling out, in your mind, was that the scariest preconception that you
And
had?
just so we kind of define our terms, because we
that's
use a
good.
little shorthand calling out.
Right, yeah.
It's pretty easy for people to figure
Yeah.
out. But
Yeah.
basically, people are going into the abortion center, get out of their cars. They've got probably 15 seconds before they make it to the front door. We're calling out to them to get them to come over and talk to us. So we're trying to start a conversation, but we've got to call out across the parking lot. So, and that can be an intimidating thing.
Yeah, so my first day out there, Vicky told me just to stand there and listen. And because I was like, what do you, like, do you say things that are offensive? Do you not offend? Do you only preach love? Do you also talk about the reality of what they're doing? And in the back of my mind, I was like, I can't say anything because I'll say the wrong thing. And
Yeah.
so...
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to get at.
Yeah.
You know, there's a fear of saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, and so like, and even being out there for 4 weeks now, even when they're super nice to me, I'm like, I don't want to say anything that's gonna offend them, but
Yeah.
they're literally about to drive in and murder their child. It's such going back and forth in my mind of
Yeah.
like, this is life and death, and they want to choose death. You sometimes have to say offensive things,
Yeah.
and so. The women on the sidewalk that I've worked with so far have been absolutely amazing.
So you're talking about the volunteers,
Yes,
Cities for Life
yes,
volunteers.
yeah, they have been so great, and because even sometimes I'll think in my head, is this okay to say? And then she'll say it right next to me. I'm like, okay, that's okay to say, and they have just been very honest, but I hear it and it's coming from a place that we love you and we want to help you.
Right.
What you hear a lot from the counselors on the sidewalk is we just want to help you and we're here. And then a lot of the women have shared with me that they've experienced this too. And so that's been interesting to hear, is that they're being bold about I've been in your shoes kind of thing. And for me, if I was walking inside and was abortion minded, hearing that someone out there could relate with me, I would identify with that, and that would make me want to listen and stuff. So yeah, just going back and forth. I know you guys weren't going to throw your pitchforks at them just because coming out with Love Life, I never saw anything like that. And so I just didn't know like where the line was.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's not really a line because you have to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they are
Yeah,
going
it's
in there
it's
to
it's
kill their
it's
child.
a strange dynamic, and it's something I've learned over the years. I don't know, you've learned over the years, and everybody sort of has their own perspective and their own, I don't know, angle they come from as far as, if you're post-abortive, you're going to come from a different angle and
Yeah.
all of that. But the Lord has really blessed us, I think, with a good balance. And we did a podcast about this, balancing truth and grace. And I think the Lord has helped us. I think we've learned through some trial and error.
Yeah.
I've made plenty of mistakes in my time of being just too forthright. But also, we can be not forthright enough. I mean,
Right.
we are at a place of life and death,
Yeah.
and we're there in front of an abortion clinic. This is, of course, what I want folks who may be intimidated a little bit about going out to an abortion clinic and being a sidewalk counselor. You got to be aware that you're in a place literally of life and death, and it's no time to dance around the issues.
Yeah.
We've got to
Right.
be forthright. When
Right.
a woman's coming to the abortion clinic and she stops to take our information, we don't talk about the weather or anything like that. We get right to
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Are you
Right.
here for an abortion? Now, from that point, we're not going to just say, well, if you're here for an abortion, you're a wicked person. We don't go
Right.
there. We want to engage in a conversation, but we're going to be real forthright. And so you've picked up on a lot of that.
Yeah.
I guess gracious forthrightness. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you would call it that.
Well, I think you've identified the tension that I think exists in all of us, not just when you're brand new, but throughout. And that balance does shift depending on what the person you're talking to has to say, and where if she's hardening her heart, I'm going to tend to shift more towards truth.
Yeah.
And I know I do that. I'm conscious of that because I'm always feeling there's a baby's life on the line.
Yeah.
And to express too much of God's forgiveness and love too early just helps her to justify.
Right. That's something I've noticed as well is when there's been a mom that's in and out of her car a lot or in and out of the building a lot,
Right.
the progress of what comes out of the sidewalk counselors
Right.
gets deeper.
Yes.
At first it's like, here's what we can do. We can help you. And then as they notice that they're coming in and out, then I notice that they get down to the root of this is sin.
Right.
This is something
What would God have you do?
this is something
And-
you can't take back and stuff. And I think that's been really helpful too.
Yeah.
I know one of the benefits that you've had, and I think you'll say this is a benefit, actually you've already mentioned it, that some folks that are listening may not have, is that you have veteran sidewalk counselors that are there right beside you,
Yeah.
and you're able to listen to, and they're sort of coaching you along and encouraging you, and maybe not, because one of the most intimidating things, you can tell me whether or not I'm wrong, but I think I'm right about this, is the one-on-one conversations.
Yeah.
Not just the calling out, but the one-on-one conversations. And so a veteran sidewalk counselor, if someone stops to talk to you, can kind of step in
Yeah.
and talk.
That happened today.
So-
Yeah.
In fact,
Twice, yeah.
the woman stopped for Autumn, and Autumn started the conversation, and I was instantly over there. We had talked about, Autumn and I, that, okay, Vicki will show up because there will come a point at which she just really doesn't know enough yet in
Yeah.
terms of our resources and
Yeah.
all of that. So I was right there
Yeah.
within a few
Yeah,
seconds.
and that can
of
be
them
one of the
calling.
most intimidating things
Yeah.
is the one-on-one conversations, and how far you can go with the conversation, and
Right.
how you answer this question or that concern. And it's one of the reasons why on the Sidewalks for Life website, a lot of folks don't know this, but in I believe it's the Join Our Community tab, if you click that and you scroll down on that page, there's actually a map there of sidewalk counselors all across the country, not necessarily Sidewalks for Life people or Cities for Life people or even people that we know. They're just people who somehow through social media or whatever have told us they do sidewalk counseling. So those who want to get involved with sidewalk counseling and want to have at least some veteran presence out there, it is helpful. Go on that map and check it out. But also it's one of the reasons why Vicki and me, and hopefully we'll get some other folks to start writing content too,
Yeah.
are trying to disciple people through blog posts, because those things, experiences, sharing a story that you, Vicki, have encountered, even maybe Autumn has encountered, sharing that with somebody and how you worked through that situation is encouraging. So that's why we write those articles. Shameless plug in for
Yeah.
for that
Yeah.
website, because I think
Yeah.
it is important. It is powerful.
Well, Autumn today, when and I took over, I think I'm talking about the same interaction. Maybe there were two that this happened with, but I took over and talked with her for quite a while. And as soon as I finished, Autumn asked me, "What did you say?"
Yeah.
So she wanted to hear so that she could then internalize
Yeah.
that and decide, what felt like were things that she could use
Yeah.
Yeah.
and didn't know.
I felt like
to
I've
say.
asked a ton of questions
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm out there every day, so there's different people out there obviously every day, and everyone's been really gracious because sometimes I'll just stand there and I'll be quiet because I'm like, I said my 4 lines and I'm not quite sure what to say next, and then someone who's experienced will jump in, and so then I'll be like, if they're doing this, like, how do you respond in this situation? Or like one time a girl did respond back to me kind of in a, she was upset, obviously.
Yeah.
So I asked Daniel, I was like, when they respond that way, how do I respond back in a
Right.
loving way as well? And
Right.
so the people on the sidewalks have been very patient with me with all my questions that I've been asking, because I do want to learn so that way I can be quick to
Yeah.
read a situation well enough to be able to respond in the appropriate way
Right.
that they have. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
So we did, I think the first, I don't know, you can tell me if I'm remembering correctly, but the first couple of days you were out, I think I put you at the driveway
My
giving out literature.
second day out there.
Second day
He
out
said,
there.
you can work the driveway. I said, I don't know what that means, but all right.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I can appreciate your willingness, and you did a great job. But I put her at the main driveway offering literature, and that's where people stop and want to talk. And I said, what did I tell you? I can't remember what I told you
You're
exactly.
like, yeah, you're just like, sometimes you just got to be thrown in there, that's how
Yeah.
you learn. And I was like, okay.
Because you came in when there's coronavirus, so our
Yeah.
teams are small. I have
Yeah.
an injured voice, so
Yeah.
I can't call out.
Yo,
So I'll
it-
be standing behind Autumn sometimes saying, say this, say this,
Yeah.
say this.
Well, and the day before, I hadn't talked at all because it was my first day, and it was so busy, and there was someone on the RV, so I like barely saw you. So I was like, I have no idea what to do. And he was like, just go stand at the driveway. And I was like, you want me to do what?
Yeah.
Like,
Don't you learn, though, in that. I mean, this is what people got to understand. This is a very intense spiritual battle.
It is.
If you're coming into sidewalk counseling, being, whatever, maybe even, I'd say definitely pregnancy center ministry, when you're dealing with abortion, you're dealing with a very spiritual matter. Mm-hmm. And this has got to be a ministry. We got the business mentality, like we're running a business or something. That on the sidewalk is just completely thrown out the window, right? We've got to learn to lean on the Lord. Mm-hmm. And so I helped you to do that.
100%.
Have you learned, though? I mean, you're a godly young lady. You love Jesus. You want to serve him. But do you think in the past 4 weeks that you've learned at least a different dynamic, if not a more intense need to lean on the Lord and to trust him?
100%.
Okay.
It is way harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously I picked Cities for Life because I believe in the cause. And we talk about abortion at my house all the time. At the dinner table, we talk about it because my sister was heavily involved with Love Life. Yeah. And so it's a constant conversation we're always having. I know where I stand. I know the facts. So I thought this will be a natural place for me to just jump right in because I already believe this. I already talk about this. But what I didn't realize is that I was having those conversations with people that agreed with me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And even there are sometimes the people at school where I'll have conversations about the gospel where they may not agree and I've had to defend my faith. I've been to India, like in the slums of India, sharing the gospel. That is hard.
Yeah.
But coming out here and being on the sidewalk, it is something that I've never experienced before. I feel like I am going to like war every day. Yes. My chest just feels super heavy every day. And my first week I left and I cried every day on my way home because I don't even know if I can adequately put into words how it feels once you're actually out there. Because you can say it all day long, you agree, but then once you're put in that position and now you're trying to, in a way, sort of convince those women that this is not the way, while there's a fence and there's trees and the security guards are laughing at you. Yeah. And I haven't had to deal with any pro-aborts yet, praise Jesus.
Yeah.
But it's, don't say that.
That has been a blessing of the coronavirus, actually, that they're not out there. But you are describing beautifully spiritual warfare, right? You have experienced that more than any place else you've ever been.
Even being in India, like I didn't feel it as heavy as I did than being on a place like this because I mean we live in America where it's okay to do this, and so people are now being taught from a young age that as a woman it's your right to do that. So unlearning that and then trying to tell them and make them see that you're not coming out of place. I'm not yelling at you, like I genuinely just want you to love Jesus and want to choose life. And it's like there's so many things going through your mind and then feeling that way as well. I've been in my Bible so much and reaching out to my disciplers so much and have all these people praying for me because I'm like I would literally die if Jesus wasn't walking through this with me because it's so heavy. It really is.
That's one of the things that I see with folks who, I've been exposed to this type of ministry for about 15 years now, since 2005. And I've seen some folks almost literally go bonkers in their mind that are involved at abortion clinics and just go off the rails. And it's one of the reasons why I stress, and it's a requirement if you're going to volunteer with us, you've got to be a part of a local church. You need that accountability. You need that encouragement. You need to be able to, you need to have mentors and people you can bounce things off of and unload on because it's such an intense battle. It's so not normal for us to be in this sort of battle, especially in American Christianity, where a lot of the preaching and teaching is, how do you feel and about, 5 ways to get your best life and all these other things. We're not taught. Sacrifice, lay your life down, speak on behalf of those that can't speak for themselves at the risk of getting threatened or whatever. It is pretty intense for sure.
And that's just talking about abortion, which is of course the major focus of our ministry. But what leads to abortion has to be addressed, or they'll just be back. And so that's a whole new layer that you probably haven't even really quite explored yet. But talking about God's message about sexual purity. Because if it wasn't for sexual sin, 99% of the abortions would not be happening. So then there is that gets added into the discomfort of sharing with complete strangers. Yes, you are involved in sexual sin, which has led to this terrible place. So the best is yet to come, in other words.
Awesome.
Well, do you remember?
So great.
I'm pretty sure I said this to you when you came and interviewed for the internship. I say this to probably, I think, all of our volunteers. I make two promises. If you are coming, and I make a promise to anybody listening to this podcast, if you commit to come onto the sidewalk on a consistent basis, two things are going to happen. God will use you to save babies. So that's going to happen. I'm just telling you. Even if you don't find out about it, I promise you, if you stand in front of an abortion clinic and you reach out, even if you don't see the fruit of it visually, when you stand before God, I promise you, He's going to use you to save babies, because your voice is, if you're a believer, your voice is effective. God is going to use you to save babies. And second promise is you're going to grow spiritually in ways you otherwise would not grow. Have you found those two things to be true?
The first one, I don't feel super confident yet,
Okay.
but I believe that you're right, because something that you told me when we were on the phone talking one day after this was that, like, Jesus, I'm not responsible for the
Successes.
or the women
Or
that
the
don't, because
failures,
I
right.
didn't know if that
Yeah.
woman had chosen life, and
Right.
I was feeling really bad because I
Right.
thought I should have said more.
Right.
And so then I was thinking about what you said is, even if I don't see a single result, if I never know, if no one ever comes and tells me that because of what I said, Jesus gets all the glory for it, and then He tells me later in heaven, then that'll be
Yeah.
so worth it.
Yeah.
And that's been something that's been hard to kind of wrap my mind around too, and be okay with, is when I do interact with somebody, if I don't say enough, or if I said something that I shouldn't have said, then in my head I'm like beating myself up. And but then you told me those encouraging words. They decided to go in there, and I did my part by being obedient to what Jesus has called me to
Right.
do.
Yeah.
And that's one of
Yeah.
those that's another aspect of spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
So that it, and this is another thing that we encourage the volunteers with, is that the devil's going to eat your lunch, or at least try to, because you've been out there on the sidewalk, you've poured your heart out, and then you've poured your heart out, maybe even one-on-one to a woman who's pulled over on the side of the
Yeah.
road, and she's gone into that abortion clinic. And the devil later on that day when you leave or whatever is going to be, oh, you should have said this.
Yeah.
Oh, you should have said that. Oh, you didn't do this. You didn't do that just right. No one can say everything that needs to be said.
Right.
We just have to make ourselves available to be vessels of the Lord, to speak the truth to them. You can say, even if you knew everything exactly to say perfectly, you could say everything exactly perfectly, and still she might go in there
Right.
and have an abortion.
Right.
I mean, we've had women, and I think we've shared this on the podcast before, one young lady who went on the mobile ultrasound unit, and it's about 95% of the women that go on that mobile unit will choose life for their babies.
Right.
But this young lady, this is a couple of years ago, the mom of twins, 18-week-old twins, went on the mobile unit, parked right in front of the abortion clinic. She went on there. She saw her babies perfectly. 18 weeks old, you can tell whether or not they're little boys, little girls.
Yeah.
Every need she had was answered with some corresponding resource. Housing need. Oh, here it is. Free prenatal care. Oh, here it is. All of that stuff was answered. And yet she walked right off that mobile unit, right into that abortion clinic, and killed those two
Right.
18-week-old babies.
Right. Yeah.
And for the nurse, for the counselor, devastating.
Yeah.
And the devil speaking his lies. Oh, you should have did this. You should have did that. And you've got to come to the point, and this is where your growth in the Lord and just learning to lean on the Lord is, where you come to the point and say, devil, I am not receiving your lies. I did what God called me to do. I was a voice for those babies. Maybe I didn't say everything exactly right, but I said what God had put on my heart to say,
Yeah.
and it was up to them. And that's the reality. It's up to that
Right.
mom
And you
to
gave-
do the right thing.
You gave all you had at that moment,
Yeah.
and accept that.
Yeah.
Has, so we've heard a lot of struggles, and at this point, there may be listeners thinking, "Why is anyone out on?" Because I'm sure not going there. Are
Sounds
there
like torture.
are there any rewards?
Oh, I think this has been one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had.
Talk about that, please,
Like-
because listeners are
please.
running for the.
100%. I think every Christian, you know how they always say, like, every person should work in some sort of food service so they know how to treat service
Right,
workers.
yeah.
I think every single Christian in the world should come out and spend at least a week out here.
Yeah, we agree.
So that way, because you have so many people that are like, oh yeah, I'm pro-life, of course, until it comes down to it. And I think being out there on the sidewalk, it's definitely gonna show your true colors of whether or not you really do stand for this or not. And I mean, even though, like, I already came in, like, being pro-life, this is just opened. I feel like the veil's been ripped from my eyes again.
Yeah.
There are people that do want to help, and there are so many resources that I didn't even know about that you guys can provide for women. And there are
Right.
people on the sidewalks that genuinely love all these women that are going in there. And even with the music playing that you guys have out there, I feel like I just spend so much time in prayer, and I feel like that's where I struggle the most in my own personal life is in prayer, like sitting down and doing it. But being out there when it's just quiet because they've all gone inside and there's no more people sitting in their cars, I've poured out to God, being
Right.
like, please God. And so I feel like that has helped me grow so much too, of just being so dependent on him, because I mean, I can't go in there, I can't cross the line, I've already gotten yelled at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
So like God,
Stepping over
Yeah.
onto the property.
right, yeah, I have to trust God 100% that whatever happens in there, like he's sovereign and he's in control. And then being so encouraged by the women on the sidewalks and you guys having Christian community
Yeah.
is so important as well.
Yeah, some of
with
the
doing
deepest
something like this.
relationships that I have in my
Yeah.
life have been forged out there on the sidewalks
Right.
because, the deepest relationships are oftentimes forged in battle.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's a real battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something, Autumn, and I'm going to just throw the question out there.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not trying to be accusatory, certainly not towards you, but
Okay.
towards the women that we minister to, primarily is what I'm talking about. Because
Yeah.
there's this mentality. And you may have come in with this mentality. And I tried to tear it down as quick as I could so that you didn't get discouraged
Yeah.
when you came and interviewed for the internship. But there's a mentality that a lot of Christians have that women that come to an abortion clinic are just victims. And they're just poor, innocent little victims, and we just need to be there just to love them. And that's not untrue, and I'm no
Right.
way implying that there aren't women that come there that are victims. Ultimately, we did a whole podcast about this,
Right.
about how women are not victims, but they are.
Yeah.
Did you come with that mentality that these are just poor women that are victims of circumstances, and I'm going to save the world by coming out there?
No.
Okay.
Again, just because we have this constant conversation in my
Okay.
household, I feel like that's kind of helped. But something that I've noticed, I feel like a lot of it is just to take away human responsibility.
Okay.
Because I've seen like so many people just come in and like they're laughing as they walk in or joking as they come out, or just not having a care in the world about what's going on, bringing their McDonald's into the parking lot. Like it's almost like you're just waiting to get your nails done. It's
Yeah.
so nonchalant.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there was a woman last week that I genuinely believed that she was in a horrible situation. Something horrible had happened to her. And she felt like this was her only option.
Yeah.
But what I've seen a lot is that this is just a way to take away the human responsibility of my personal actions. Like I want to have the fun without the consequences.
Yeah.
Right.
And this will get rid of the consequences.
Yeah. Yeah, and the reason why I asked that question is because a lot of people from the outside looking in, and I had this mentality, the women that come to an abortion clinic, I mean, for them it's got to be an extreme thing. It must be some big time issue going on in their lives. But when you're out there on the sidewalk, you quickly find these are not poor little innocent victims just waiting for your help.
Yeah.
They're venomous. They hate your guts. They want to rip your head off, and they're going to kill their baby, and they don't give a rip what you say. And they don't care what God says. That's probably the majority.
Yeah.
And it's not that God doesn't want to reach those people. He does, and we've seen him do it so many times. I mean, I think of a woman who came to the abortion clinic 5 different times. And I think the 3rd or 4th time she came, I was actually calling out to her, and I was saying, hey, we're here to offer help. You don't want to go in there and take the life of your baby. And she said, if I could spit this baby out of my mouth right now on the sidewalk, I would. I was like, oh, God, how wicked.
Yeah.
But she couldn't have an abortion that day for whatever reason. She came back that 4th or 5th time or whatever, and the mobile unit was out there, and she said, you know what? I'm just going to go in there and see what they have to say. And she ended up choosing life for her baby. So God can save all kinds of people.
Right.
He does.
Yep.
But some folks, again, might come with this mentality, these are just poor victims. And if you come with that mentality on the sidewalk, you're going to quickly you're going to get burned and leave and not come back,
Yeah.
or your attitude is going to change.
Yeah.
You're going to
And
get very, very bitter.
you'll get bitter, or, you allow the Lord to give you his perspective. God's perspective is, all of humanity is lost, dead in our trespasses and sins, separated from him. We're all rebels against him. And he comes to us forthrightly, confronts us in our sin, but he does it out of love. And so I think the Lord teaches us to do that, to be forthright, to confront sin, but to do it with compassion, because you can come and confront sin and do it without compassion, almost like, with some folks' mentality is, I'm better than them, and therefore I can set them straight. And that's a bad mentality to have. But you can also come with an attitude of these are just poor innocent victims, and that's not going to work for you either. So some kind of balance there that the Lord teaches you. That's why clinging to the Lord, getting in His Word, getting His heart is muy importante.
Yes.
That's Spanish for very important, by the way.
Got it. So were there things that now you've been out there for a month that were misconceptions from the beginning that now you really have come to have a deeper understanding of what really happens out there?
I don't know. I think I just thought that it was going to be a lot easier than what it is. And I guess I just didn't realize how much the volunteers do. I don't know, because I never thought, when other people say, because when I tell people that I work for you guys now, they're always, will you just stand out there and yell at women, or do you actually help women? And I don't know. I haven't met anybody that stands out there and like yells at women. So when people have that misconception, I'm always really confused by that. And I know that like you read about the Westboro Baptist Church that protest stuff, but like I follow Jeff Durbin a lot and watch a lot of his stuff, and he's always so peaceful when he talks to people. And then seeing you guys out there, I never have had that mentality that you guys are out there to do that. So, and then being out there just kind of confirmed that that's what you guys were there to do. Again, I just thought, and then being an intern, I thought I wouldn't be as involved, which is totally fine. It's helped me grow so much. And so, and if that's what you guys need me to do, I'm willing to do that. It's just, I don't know. There's just so much more help, I guess, that you guys are providing than I thought, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's good. I wonder where that misperception comes from, because we hear it all the time.
It comes from media sources who are not favorable toward us.
I've seen that too, because the article that they just put out about you that we were reading, I told him you needed to fact check his stuff. Seeing on a smaller scale what the media can do, and then if I wasn't pro-life and thought it was okay, reading that, I would just confirm my thoughts. And so coming out here and seeing what you guys are actually
there's
doing.
a mentality that and it's the media that puts this mentality, and then Christians, we just, people read stuff and they just sort of take the bait, but we're protesters. We're just out there to protest, which we're going to do a podcast about that.
Exactly.
We're just out there to protest, and it's like, no, we're not. I'm not protesting anything. I'm out here offering help to women that are going into the abortion clinic and sharing the gospel with them. You can put whatever label you want on it. We're not protesting. We're not walking back and forth with picket signs and saying no more abortion, whatever. We're not trying to appeal to the government. We're trying to appeal to women going into the abortion clinic not to kill their babies and offer them help. And, that, again, a lot of folks don't want to see that or just haven't bothered to dig into it, because we get those on Facebook all the time. We get questions, will you guys actually help the women after they choose life? And I'm like, have you looked at our Facebook page at all? Have you looked at our website? The myriad of ministries that we partner with and the stories that we share on a regular basis of how we've went from the abortion clinic to stories where we've seen people get married and help them get housing and help them get vehicles. It's like all these things. So thankfully you came in sort of understanding all of that stuff.
Well, something else that I've learned while being out here, and you asked me this in my interview, was even if we didn't provide all of this stuff, would it still be okay for us to be out there?
Good. That was the next thing I was going to ask. Have you changed, or what are your thoughts about that? Yeah.
So my first thought was, absolutely, people shouldn't murder their kids. But even now being out here, I firmly believe that even if I gave you nothing, you're still voluntarily walking in there to take the life of your child. If you were taking a 1-year-old in there, there would be way more people out here. But because it's inside the womb, people want to justify it and make it different. But it's still the same. It's still a child. It's just a little younger. And so even if I had nothing to give you, I still have the right to tell you that you can't take the life of your child.
Not just the right, but the responsibility.
If
you look at it, from
the
a
biblical mandate to speak for those who
Yeah.
can't speak for themselves.
So I really stand behind that now.
Yeah.
Well, so we're 30 plus minutes into this thing, so I think we're about ready to wrap this up. As long as you're good with
Autumn,
questioning Autumn.
You've been great. You have been
really
a blessing, and just from a practical standpoint, just all that you do. behind the scenes, which we really didn't talk about at all.
Yeah.
But though you're doing all of those things too, setting up the equipment and all that. That has been such a blessing to us. But then for you to do what you did, coming in every day for now 4 weeks, and you've been on a crash course of how to be a sidewalk counselor, and you are really good.
Yeah, she's
and
doing
you
a great
have
job.
grown so much. It's made me think that maybe this should be our regular volunteer protocol.
Yeah.
Throw them in for a whole month.
Amen.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Every day.
It might run a lot of them away. I've seen that happen too.
Yeah, but we are so appreciative. You've been fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here. Like,
Yeah, well, I'll say
genuinely,
though, you remember I said I made those 2 promises to everyone. God will use you to save babies, and you're going to grow. So you've already
Yes,
shared you've grown.
definitely.
And I've seen women that you've handed out literature to leave out of that abortion clinic.
Right.
God has used you to
Right.
save babies.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like our Body of Christ podcast that we did, how the
Right.
Body of Christ works together. Somebody hands out literature, somebody else calls out,
Yeah.
somebody else ministers to them on the mobile ultrasound unit. All of this is the body of Christ working together, ultimately to glorify Jesus, but
Right.
God uses that
Yeah.
to save babies.
God has used that whole body out
Yeah,
there,
absolutely.
too.
So as
Yeah.
we wrap this thing up, is there anything, Autumn, that you would say to someone who has fear and anxiety about going out to an abortion clinic? And is there anything you would say to them to encourage them to step out in faith and do that? Or maybe you just warn them, don't do it. I don't know.
Well, no. I hate confrontation more than anything. I don't like being mean to people. I don't like them being mean to me. And so for me to step out and do this has been crazy.
Yeah.
And so I think if I can do it, then anybody can. And not just that we can, I think everyone should. And so if we're going to claim to know the Lord and to pick up our crosses and to die to ourselves and to follow him and to live like how he lives, I think, like you guys said, we have a biblical responsibility. We're spiritually held accountable to be out there. And so if you want to step out in faith and be obedient to that, I think this is one of the perfect places to
Yeah.
start.
Yeah.
Amen.
And so I would encourage anybody to
Yeah.
come out here and to definitely just sit and listen first.
Yeah.
And just to see what it's about. But then I have to really tell myself, I'm like, okay, you just had to do it.
Yeah.
Because that first time, like, call out, you get a little anxious and you're like, oh, but you just got to swallow your pride and do
Yeah.
it. And then when I leave here, I'm like, I'm really glad that I didn't
Yeah.
let the fear take over my mind and control my
Yeah.
words. So,
Absolutely. Good encouragement.
Yeah, very much.
And so I do want to encourage those who are listening. We do have the Sidewalks for Life website, sidewalks4life.com, with articles that we put out. We have videos out there, training videos. We're going to continue to produce content and put things out there as we're able. Also, maybe you're listening and you're from California, or you're listening from wherever. Maybe you're from the Charlotte area. We'd be more than willing to have you out there on the sidewalk. Maybe you want to fly in from California or drive in because you don't want to be on the airplane right now because of the coronavirus or whatever. And you want to stay in town for a couple of days and come out and shadow our teams. We've had people do that. We've had people from as far away as Ohio and other states that are seeing what we're doing online on social media, and they see what God's doing through this ministry, and they come and they shadow us. If you want to do that, reach out to me, dparks@citiesforlife.com. We'll set that up and make it happen. We'd love to. I don't think that we have it all figured out, but I think by God's grace we've worked through a lot of it. So we'd love to have you come in town. And we actually have toyed with the idea of doing some kind of conference here in Charlotte and doing some training, sort of a real small mini conference. We've kicked that idea around. The coronavirus has thrown a lot of stuff. But I would say in the future, we will definitely do something like that. We'll be watching on social media in the coming months for us to put something out, for us putting that together. If you have any questions for me, dparks@citiesforlife.com. Any questions for Vicky, vcassiorg@citiesforlife.com. We'd love to answer your questions. We appreciate if you would share this podcast with other people. We appreciate you listening. Until next time, God bless.
Give me an outlet for love. Give me an outlet for gratitude. I know it will cost me my life, but nothing's too precious since I met you.